Well, it's here, your chance to support the launch of the Unwow, your blueprint for experience designs of all kinds. Publishing a book in the manner I am relies on your support to bring it to life. And if you like this podcast and believe in the Unwow, then you can help directly. Go to theunwow.com and click on the Support the Unwow button. You'll be taken to a page with presale perks and packages where you can help bring the Unwow to life. By doing so, you'll become part of the Unwow community. And at certain levels of support, you might even get an ad on Experience by Design podcast. So head over to theunwow.com, click on Support the Unwow button, and help make the Unwow happen. Now, on to the show.
1, 2, 3.
I'm Gary David. Welcome to Experience by Design, the podcast where we explore experience designs of all kinds. Hello, experience designers and EXDers everywhere. I guess we can include unwowers in that introduction as well, given that the Unwow support effort has begun. So for everyone who is going to support the Unwow, thank you so much in advance, and looking forward to having you part of the Unwow community. As I sit here and record this, I just keep thinking about where has the summer gone. It's hard to believe that we are staring at, back to school in the face. I'm just wrapping up my summer course on employee experience, and quite honestly, it was great to see the students produce projects that really embrace the value of employees in organizations. Hopefully, some of the ideas that they generated for this final assignment can be implemented in actual organizations, because I do believe that they can make a difference by putting their words into action. And even if they don't have that chance to put words into action, at least they now are more familiar with the importance of employee experience. Now I move on to the regular fall semester, where more design work will be done and ideas generated. And unfortunately for me, more papers to be graded. The new semester is kind of a blank slate, even though it's going to be my 27th year at my school. But despite that time, it is still a blank slate, and that's whether or not I'm teaching a class I've taught before or a new class entirely. A syllabus and a course is, at the end of the day, an exercise in design. There is always something to be tweaked and adjusted, shifted and modified, trying to make things better and connect with the students. After all, design is, at the end of the day, about making things better in ways small and large, delivering an impact that has some kind of effect that produces a change. Today's guest on Experience by Design podcast is all about making things better in ways both small and large. Andrea Lake is CEO of Sticker Junkie, which was founded in 1999 with not just a mission of creating quality products for customers, but creating experiences for employees as well. Before that, she was also a contestant on The Apprentice with a certain current president. And even before that, she had a business of selling something called rhythm sticks, these kind of juggling sticks that you might see at concerts, selling t-shirts and a range of other entrepreneurial ventures. But being a dedicated entrepreneur does not mean she does business as usual. We talk about her philosophy regarding running a business, as well as capitalism as well. She describes Sticker Junkie as kind of a punk rock company, which includes having open financials and advocating for a living wage, something that she starts with her own employees. We talk about how companies have shifted away from just treating employees as resources and into treating employees as valued members of the workplace community. This includes ideas such as profit sharing, which might not seem like a lot, but honestly, it really is, especially at a time when so many employees really don't feel appreciated by their companies. She explains how Sticker Junkie provides high-touch client service and builds customized interfaces for each client, producing really gorgeous, beautiful stickers. Andrea notes that customers are increasingly seeking out businesses with ethical practices, particularly avoiding those owned by private equity firms. And she believes this trend will continue to benefit companies like hers that prioritize values over pure profit maximization. Additionally, Andrea talks about the importance of nonlinear and critical thinking as vital skill sets that need to be taught more in schools. And I can completely co-sign to both of those sentiments as an instructor now for 27 years. Hard to believe. Now, a little bit of a warning. There is a bit of strong language being used to communicate deeply held beliefs in this one. So if you usually listen to Experience by Design with kids in the car, you might want to switch that up a little bit. But it's a great episode and a really important message from a company CEO. Hope you enjoy it. I just got done teaching today for 4.5 hours, and I was actually talking about you in class. You came up.
Oh my, in what context?
Well, we were talking about the larger theme was it's an experience design class. And one of their assignments, they have to develop an idea throughout the semester. And for this assignment, the challenge was to create experiences of belonging, essentially. And community and belonging, or try to bring people together to make connection through the experience that you're creating. And I was talking about that, and the idea of ideology came up, and how ideology can be divisive, but it can bring people together. And also symbols came up, and I was talking about sticker junkie and symbols and all the things of how we symbolize who we belong to. But then I started talking about Stickergate.
Oh my goodness. It's riveting, isn't it?
It kind of is, because on the one hand, it's, the idea of ideology can be, like I said, very divisive. And you wouldn't lead a conversation just meeting somebody by saying, so what do you think of gun control? I mean, so we avoid those topics, but at the same time, when those topics come up, they kind of have to be addressed, because once someone brings it up, it's there. And this is, obviously what happened with Sticker Mule. And I just found it, I was talking about, number one, how you all crafted a response to that. But number two, on your website, it just doesn't say buy our stickers. It says join the Sticker Junkie revolution, calling people to action around something that is shared. So that was the context I was talking about my conversation with you today in Sticker Junkie.
Oh, nice. It gets even better the deeper that it goes. Hang on, let's let Rico finish drinking water.
That's okay. Rico can drink water.
Everyone needs it. Picking it up.
What's that? No, I can't hear him.
Oh, the Shure mic is pretty good.
Yeah, I know.
It gets even better than that, because we invite people to come watch our journey of growth. So every year for 5 years in a row, we're doing a 500% return. A 500% annual increase. And this year I had a stretch goal to get to 22 million, which would be a 1,400+% increase in a single calendar year. And that's cuckoo pants crazy. And so people are like, I'm going to be able to do that. And I'm like, I'm not just saying I'm doing that. I have a fucking podcast. I am saying, come watch me do it.
Right. And I was reading also about you a little bit, and thus the importance that you place, at least the article said, about manifestation.
Yeah.
Manifesting things. And that's always been something I've struggled with, because, it just seems to work out the opposite. I come from the school of thought, and the experience is that the more you hope for something to happen, the worse that actually is what's going to happen. It's the opposite magical thinking. It's like the higher your expectations are and your hopes are, that's just the longer to fall. So I'm just kind of curious, people like yourselves who believe in manifestation, how do you manage that? And how do you also manage the setbacks when they do happen, which invariably setbacks happen?
I wouldn't know anything about a setback. I've never had one.
Okay. Well, I guess that closes that question.
$4 million in debt. So what I actually believe is that we end up manifesting around us the vibration that we hold the most.
Okay.
So as one might imagine, when I woke up very suddenly, very deeply in debt, I was incredibly concerned about money. I was concerned about money for a long, long time, which it didn't make any sense really that I was.
Mm-hmm.
But thing after thing after thing kept happening that was concerning about money. And so if somebody has a lot of hopes or aspirations on something and that's not what happens, then I would guess that their dominant thoughts are more around what can go wrong and the opposite of it happening, even without them realizing it. Most people, when they think about money, they think that they're thinking good thoughts about money, but they're not, because most people don't have a very good relationship with money.
Right.
And if you're afraid or frightened about money at all, a way better option is going to be to think about all of the different ways that you are abundant that don't have anything to do with money. Do you have a beautiful view? Do you love your spouse? Do you have great kids? Do you have a sports team that you're going to watch this weekend that's fun for you? Do you have a sports team you're going to play on this weekend that's fun for you? And just leave money entirely out of the equation. And then money usually goes better for people when they're not thinking so hard about it.
Interesting. It reminds me in a way, this past weekend, I went to Lake Placid, New York to watch the final races of the World Cup, the Nordic World Cup or cross-country skiing World Cup. And what was interesting about that, other than it was on United States soil, was it was the last race of Jessie Diggins, who is the most decorated Nordic skier the United States has ever produced and one of the best in the world. And it was her last race. And it was interesting because on her last day of her career, her last race, she's racing at the front and going down this one tricky downhill, she falls. And now she's out of contention for the win. And one of the things that she emphasizes is my metrics of success are not whether I win or lose. It's the legacy that I leave and the impact that I have about joy and being thankful for the opportunity to do things that you love.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought, it's such a great message when we're, in a culture that's primarily dominated by winner takes all mentality.
Yeah, it's completely asinine, the mentality that the United States has propagated over the last 40, 50 years of money being the most important metric. And when I went broke, I realized how when you don't have enough money, I knew this already, but I really knew it. That's all I could think about because I needed to think about it.
Right.
The moment that I have enough money, I don't think about it at all because it's not required. And so systematically in the United States, this is the Democrats and the Republicans, fucking spoiler alert, a living wage has not increased in the United States at a federal level in 16 years.
Right.
That's appalling. That is criminal. How fucking dare those people give themselves raises every year and more compensation and fantastic wealth avocado. Oh, sorry. That's what I say when I fuck something up on my own podcast. Editing note. It's a safe word. But when they're consistently paying themselves and stripping out every single safety net for society, and we've been indoctrinated in this country to believe that that's normal, and the 80s just really screwed us. Greed is right and greed is good. And I'm like, when did we decide as a country that we don't live in a community?
Right.
Like, what the actual fuck? How much indoctrination do people have to live with to get to that point?
It's a crucial one because the me generation of the 1980s, which I lived through as well, the greed is good kind of, Wall Street movie mentality, Michael Douglas in that one character. And so we think about, what's good for me is good for everybody. And it needs to start with me, but really losing the idea that there's something outside of us that we, not just is an obligation, but is a source of enrichment and meaning that's far greater than just ingratiating our own lives individually.
Yeah, it's wild. It's the only first world country that I experienced this way in this totally screwed up culture where you have a teeny tiny group of people, let's go ahead and call them the Epstein class, that own every single form of media. And so they have informed us for 40 years, like a frog in boiling pot of water, that money is the most dominant thing that matters, that the economy is the most dominant thing that is of importance. And because so many people, anybody really 40 or younger, grew up in an era where they were seeing all of that. Every media source that they would see would be solely that. So they didn't have the decade of like living in silence and going out to play with your neighbors, no matter how old you were, and setting up like potluck nights and having true community because nobody was spending 40 to 60% of their time staring at a screen.
Right.
It's been easy to trick people into thinking that the things that are profoundly not the most important thing are the most important thing. And now we're reaping the rewards of an entire society that thinks that way. So when I come in, like, I saw this study. It was like Time Magazine and somebody else that did this multi-million-dollar, probably a McKinsey study. Am I allowed to swear in here? Because I swear a lot.
Sure. Why not?
Okay. It was a multi-million dollar study, probably like McKinsey study or some kind of a study. I don't know who did it. And it was millions and millions and millions of dollars to come to the conclusion that if you treat people like human beings, you make more money at your business.
Right.
And I was like, how far have we slipped away from each other that we don't want to just treat people well and like human beings because they are human beings?
Yeah. What's the ROI? Well, I mean, it's not profitable, so we're not going to.
And the funny thing is that it's so obvious that it works better. Like when I start to talk about, anybody that's with us for a year, I want them to be on $85,000 minimum base salary. Well, why? Because I want anyone that works for me to be able to go live whatever life they want for the other hours outside of the 40 hours that are with me.
Right. When people think about, when you're talking about this, but you also have a podcast called The Making of a Billionaire.
I'm sure.
And so how do you kind of reconcile if someone asks between the making of a billionaire and then the notion about the ways in which money can corrupt how we treat one another and the attention that we give to community versus ourselves?
I actually don't think that it's money that corrupts. I think that we have allowed a group of very, very mentally ill people to run this society. Because if you are in your 60s, 70s, 80s, and you already have built a legacy and you have all the money in the world and you don't want to spend your twilight years traveling, so you could do anything. You could go visit every castle in the world or go see every sports game of some type or go become an expert at pottery and spend time with your kids and your grandkids in golf. But instead, you have more money than you and all of your descendants together could spend in 10 lifetimes. And you want more and you want to go bomb other countries to take their resources while simultaneously starving the bottom. It's not actually a problem that there are people who are billionaires. It's a problem that the types of people who want to have $1 billion or $1 trillion do not want to pay a living wage to everyone and want to starve out the bottom and want to not pay taxes and contribute into society because they've been told they're super special because they solved some key. When in reality, what it is a generational thing where every one of these industries, it doesn't matter if it's lighting or plumbing or stickers or coffee or books or candles or soap. These are all multi-billion-dollar industries. People spend $42 billion just in the United States on stickers annually. So whoever the biggest player in that space is, they're going to have $1 billion company. And now we get to decide who is that? Is it Sticker Junkie, where on base salary, we have a 7x spread? That means the C team never makes higher than 7x more than somebody on our salary. Like that's not a usual thing. So then what happens if we have tons of profit? We get profit participation bonused out to our employees. Like, why isn't that normal that everybody just expects if you help build a company that you also should reap the rewards of the company instead of just like back in the investor class who has a couple shares or like somebody who had a bazillion extra dollars and gave 2 million of them to a company. So then they should get all of the revenue instead of people standing on their feet all day in my production department packing boxes. Are you shitting me? No, thank you. Right. So the degree to tricked and fooled that people have to be to think that that is okay when they themselves, the people who are voting for this themselves, are the people on their feet all day at the ground level for the most part. And so the degree of lied to that people have to be, and intentionally undereducated in this country that they have to be in order to reach a conclusion that what's really important is that we don't tax Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg.
Right.
And the degree of insanity that they have to not want their base level warehouse employee to be able to buy a house, throw a quinceañera, send your kid off to college, help them pay for that. Like, it's so insane that you wouldn't want that for someone that builds your company. Because if you don't have somebody standing on their feet all day shipping boxes, guess what? The boxes don't get shipped.
It's an important thing in terms of how you as a CEO and you as a company position yourselves, right? Because one of the examples in an opposite direction, I think about as Michael Jordan, where Michael Jordan was playing basketball. There was a election for U.S. Senator in North Carolina, and you had Strom Thurmond, if I remember correctly, who was the Republican candidate, who was, a white supremacist and a racist. And then you had the other candidate who was African American, asked for Michael Jordan's endorsement. Michael Jordan was like, "No, I don't want to be political. Republicans buy sneakers too." Right. So this idea that, businesses should stay out of politics.
That was a different universe. That's
why I'm asking this question, is that, versus LeBron James, where he has more actively, and others have actively leaned into or become voices involved in these issues because, they're called to do it, and it's clearly a different time.
My speculation is if we were seeing unidentified, irate, homicidal, armed, masked men in the street who should never be called officers or agents, because how on earth would you know? Going up, kidnapping, murdering people in the street, my guess is that Michael Jordan would have a different response. It's a whole different world. So as we have very quickly descended into true authoritarian regime tactics taking place in broad daylight in America, there's no choice to not speak anymore. I never thought I would be political with my businesses, despite being a member of the Global Economic Institute, despite having studied geopolitics and global economics for decades. There would be no point for me.
Right.
And spoiler alert, I am not a Democrat or a Republican. That is also a lie. The distraction is the polarization against each other, because as long as these very, very small group of people who own virtually everything continue to take over virtually everything. A lot of my competitors, Sticker Giant and Sticker App, are owned by multi-billion-dollar private equity companies. And the multi-billion-dollar private equity companies have a job, and that job is to increase their revenue by 7 basis points annual, which is 7%.
Right.
That becomes untenable. I'm a quant trader. That is not tenable, that level of compounding returns. You can't keep going 7% per year, 7% per year, 7% per year, because it's 7 billion more when you have $100 billion enterprise.
Right.
And very, very quickly, you'll have to get $30 billion more annual, and then $1 trillion more annual. It compounds so fast that it's not actually possible. So I believe that we're at the part where it's going to fall of its own economic weight. But in the meantime, every different industry is being snapped up by private equity, and most CEOs, most entrepreneurs, most people like me, that is their goal. That is their dream.
Right. To make it so you can sell it.
Right, exactly. And when I came back in this company, I truly thought that that's what I was going to do, because I have started 14 companies and I still own the IP on all of them. I actually have started between 18 and 21. I literally don't know. But if I'm at a cocktail party and somebody asks me to name all 14 companies, I can always come up with 14 the pile.
Right.
That's why I always say 14. And so I figured I would build them and sell them. But when I came back into the workforce after having been retired, I did not realize how bad that the living wage had gotten. If you go to stickerjunkie.com/living wage, we actually created a thing where people could create their own budgets to see how much it actually costs them to live, because people are astonished. There's a reason that we're taught about ancient Mesopotamia and not basic budgeting in school. That's on purpose. Intentional.
Well, working at a school that deals with business, the idea of finance and financial literacy is something I never studied. So it's great. I wish I would have. It would have definitely helped. And I've talked to a lot of people on this podcast around finances and financial investment and wealth management. And it's like, yeah, that would have been a good thing to know about 30 years ago. Yep. For sure.
Not too late. Compounding returns are truly magic. Most people understand how they work against them with student debt loan and also with credit card debt. I actually talk about that a lot, and I actually teach a little bit on my podcast. I can't say it that way. One second. Avocado. I actually show a lot on my podcast, Andrea Lake 101, The Making of a Billionaire.
Right.
How to actually do compounding returns. It's not even hard, but it reminds me of the tech guys in like the late 80s, early 90s, where they're like, this is so complicated, this is so complex, and the technology was so simple. I feel like that's what a lot of quantitative mathematics folks and wealth investment folks try and make people think. But then when you start to learn about it, it's truly not that complicated at all.
Right. And one of the things that when we're thinking about all of this, and you're talking about your company,
Mhm.
the idea of, well, number one, it's, it's a female enterprise, female run enterprise. And
Let's go
also,
matriarchy.
what's that?
Let's go matriarchy.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, it's matriarchy and it's also matrilineal in that, how things and one of the things I learned in my anthropology class is that you can have a patriarchy that's matrilineal and you can have a matriarchy that's patrilineal. But the idea of passing things down through female hands and the extent to which you see your company not as, I would imagine, a place to work, but a place where people can find opportunity for their lives.
Yeah.
Right. And supporting them in whatever direction they want to go, whether it be in the company or outside the company, because they're getting those tools that they need to be successful in life.
100%. That is 100% true. I very consistently tell everyone around me and the people in my company, I want for you what you want for you.
Right.
I really do. And if you come, we have a trade going on here, and I only do fair negotiations. And if you come and you are trading me 80 hours of your life every 2 weeks or 40 hours of your life every week, I want for you to have whatever you want in life, because that is no small trade. And you should go live a fantastical, abundant life, and you should have plenty of vacation time, and you should go do anything that you want, and you should be able to have kids and buy a house, etc. And when you come to work and you have kids, you should have daycare options at work.
Right.
All of these things, we have been lied to and told that these things, oh, they cost too much and they this and that. But then you see a random fucking wackadoo out of nowhere, no point to it at all whatsoever, tariff go up, and all of a sudden we've got 30% more for everything. How much more does those daycare and benefits cost? I can tell you, generally speaking, single digit percentages, and certainly in a large company, this is not a big lift. It's just a reallocation of where the budget is going to.
Right. And one of the things I was talking with some previous guests on that haven't aired yet, but is, it's confounding to me how companies miss the obvious connection between employee experience and customer experience, right?
Oh my God.
If you treat people better at work, your customers are going to be happier because the people at work are going to be there for the customers because they believe in the company. It's really not hard. But yet how many companies just whiff on this or just fail to even think about it? It's really kind of depressing in some ways. They're like, this is not, this is not hard math. This is pretty simple.
This is not science rocket. Let's go. Like, it is crazy to me. And now we have, a bunch of our competitors are leaning on, I'm not saying which, but are leaning on AI really heavily. And I'm like, oh, you should convert your whole customer service experience to AI.
Please. That
a great
works.
idea. That's fantastic. Yes, please. Let's go. In Sticker Junkie, we're very clear with our employees about everything. We teach them about the financials of the company. They understand the financials. They understand that when we hit, like, our next target is $9,315 a day. And when we steady out there for 2 months, everybody got a big raise in the company, and we give raises all at the same time because we win as a team, because we function as a team. But we talk about that, about how, like, hey, look, in some places, you might have a sales rep that's getting paid 10 times as much as a graphic designer because they're able to make that commission. We don't have that at Sticker Junkie. We all win because the boxes don't get shipped if nobody ships the boxes. And we also explain this money comes to us because people spend it with us. We love our customers. We love our customers. Our customers are what enable us to show up in the morning and, like, have a snack bar and have super fun group lunch Friday and bring in really fun things and have the Sticker Junkie Olympics. And we just threw a baby shower for the first person who's expecting it, Sticker Junkie.
Aww.
Yeah, it was so much fun. And then we set up, like, a whole game thing. And spoiler alert, I am wicked good at charades. I forgot how good I was at charades.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. And the thing is that people in my company actually optionally want to spend additional time with each other because we have a legitimately fun time at work, and that does not happen by accident. And there's a whole process to it, and it's very easy to lose that. So you have to be really mindful. It's the most important thing, because people say like, oh, company culture, company culture. I'm like, I want every person that is on my staff right now to build their whole entire career with me, and they know that.
Mm-hmm. And you don't see that much anymore. I mean, it used to be the case that people, and I was doing a small project with a friend of mine as a filmmaker, and we were looking at, in New Hampshire, the Brown Paper Company and its impact and legacy on Gorham, New Hampshire, and Berlin, New Hampshire. And one of the things was that people would talk about, I had a job for life, kind of like what General Motors used to be like, or Ford, that I could start in one area and then I could find opportunity in other areas, and I grew through the company. And there was a real connection between community and company, and between person and organization. And, obviously times have changed, as they do, but you do not see those opportunities nearly as much anymore, where people are treated as as I like to say, human resources, and not treated as human beings.
Right. And there's this fallacy that's been pushed that's simply, not only is it not true, but it's actually not true for the metrics of a company, which is why I don't understand how many CFOs have allowed this to happen.
Right.
But I think it's because they're basically, the big ones are all trained in the same sort of very small segment of Ivy League schools. And they're trained into this same mentality that is just, quite frankly, not as effective. Of like, that's where you cut your costs. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That is not, you actually can tell your investors that they're going to make a little bit less off of your percentage of profits and pour more into your employees. And guess what? You'll probably do triple, quadruple, 10x the sales, because people will want to work with you. Now, I am very lucky because I do have the type of company that I was able to bootstrap. And so I do not have investors. That was on purpose too, because I did not ever want to be pressured into a situation where somebody would ethically have a different point of view than me.
And one of the things I appreciate what you just said is that I very often find, especially with my students, people talk about profit as a binary. Well, we got to be profitable. I'm like, yeah, but it's not binary. It's a bigger scale than that. There's rates of profitability, and going back to your point about 7x the CFO versus 536x or whatever it is now in the United States.
Insane. Yeah.
It's like you can reduce your margin and still be successful, but also have a more successful company. You can reduce your margin and still be profitable and be more successful at the same time.
Exactly. And it's because people have bought into like, this is a shit job and you shouldn't get paid for it. And who made you think that? Oh, that was billionaires. That was billionaires who own media stations, who in one way or another propagated that message on and 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 on. And people believe things about economy that aren't true. When someone says like, oh, it's a welfare queen and they don't want to work, if you literally were to go and fill out your own spreadsheet at stickerjunkie.com/living wage, you would see that actually there are so many people in this country where they would lose money if they went to work, because the federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. Spoiler alert, you still get taxed on that. Not a ton, but you still do. And then you have to come up with transportation to and from work, child care. It literally becomes impossible to go to work, because after taxes, and a lot of places, you buy your own uniform and don't give you a free meal, and they charge you with food theft or time theft if you clock out a minute late. I'm like, why would anyone want to work for you? Spoiler alert, they don't. They only work for you because they have to. So then that drips into all customer experience. It's just completely insane. It's an insane thing that a whole bunch of people have bought into for no good reason whatsoever, just so a tiny amount of people could thrive, when actually that tiny amount of people would still be thriving really, 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 really hard if everybody else was just doing great.
Well, I do have a solution for the childcare thing. I think, what if, now hear me out. Okay. What if, rather than taking your kids to childcare when you come into work, what if you brought your kids with you? And what if while they were there, what if you gave them something to do? Like maybe they might work alongside of you. They might do work while they're at your job. And so then we can have, children at work learning very strong life skills, rather than being in school. We could call it vocational education. So children at work for learning how to do something on the job. But we wouldn't pay them the same rate, because we'll take it out of your paycheck, because now we're providing a service to you. by having the children work.
I was like, where is he going with child labor? That sounds great. That sounds like a super good plan. And then they have those
Right?
tiny little fingers that can clean the inside of the bullet casings. Yeah.
Exactly right. I think there's a lot of
Brilliant.
things that they're best suited for. But by the way, all this learning stuff you're not going to need. You can just go on to Copilot or whatever at ChatGPT and learn it. So you need to memorize that stuff. It's all there. So what better way? And kids, if they are easily distractible, we call it experiential learning on the job, starting at around whenever they can start walking.
Brilliant.
See, this is why I get paid the big bucks to kind of solve all these problems. And rather than calling it work, we can call it, occupational therapy.
Oh, even better.
And then we can charge insurance companies for it, like Medicare or Medicaid, because now we're providing a medicalized service.
Fair. It's a capital idea.
That's just
You should present that at Milken.
What's that?
You should present that at Milken, except for I am afraid that very many of the attendees will not realize, they will not be in on the joke. They'll be like, wow.
This is a brilliant idea. This guy's onto something. We like the way the cut of your jib. We like the way you think. Everything comes around again. Everything comes around again. What is past is prologue. Yeah, it'll all happen again. For a more personal question, like why entrepreneurship? Why at such a young age did you start getting involved and wanting to, be in business for yourself? Where did that impulse come from?
Do you want the honest answer?
Yeah.
So school was like prison to me because I was in a standardized, like completely fine school in San Diego. As one might expect, I was in the GATE program. However, when I got to high school, there were just only a few honors classes, which did actually like slightly challenge me. But I was such a voracious reader that I was so very, 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 very far beyond anything that I was learning in class, just in a self-taught way, that it was like prison to me. And I had no proper understanding of the difference between high school and college. And I started throwing these things. They're called rhythm sticks. You hold one stick.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the juggling toys. And then I started selling those just like happenstance. People saw them. I had made my own. I started selling them. And so in like 1990, maybe I started doing that, or 91. And while I was still in high school, and by the time I graduated, plus I had another little side hustle thing that I was doing. And by the time I graduated, I was making $75,000 a year.
Oh, wow.
When I was like 17 years old. And so one day I was just like, people go to college to learn how to make money and figure out what they're going to do. But I already know how to make money. I can just go sell something. I'll always be able to go sell something. And the plan was to go to UC Santa Cruz, go banana slugs.
You're right.
And to have a double major in women's studies and Central and South American studies. And then after that, go get a law degree and probably an MBA also. I really wanted to be the president of Planned Parenthood. That was like my dream when I was a kid. And I thought that would be the best route to it. And then when I thought, but if I get this degree in women's studies and Central and South American studies, like, would you like fries with that? What am I doing with that degree if I don't go to 10 years of education of something that already felt like prison to me? And honestly, I was just smoking entirely too much weed at the time to sit through classroom lectures because I didn't realize how fun and interesting they would be. I have since sat in with friends of mine who are professors, and college is fascinating. I would have loved it, but I just didn't end up going.
Right. I keep wondering if that with the rhythm sticks, if you also provided like instructional videos or a booklet on how to use them, you could call it like the rhythm method. Yeah. So you thought I was going that way. I went that way.
Indeed. I like it. I like it a very lot. I actually, because there was no internet back then, I sold to a lot of like toy stores and kite shops, head shops, tattoo shops, because the ones I made were beautiful. They're still the most beautiful ones I've ever seen. I still make them for my friends. I have like 200 pairs in my guest room in Sedona, under a bed. But I ended up becoming a professional fire dancer. So I was throwing fire with fiction when I was in the early 90s.
That's amazing. I often wonder what one does. I mean, San Diego is gorgeous. The weather is always the same, it feels like. And so I always wonder, like, what's it like to live there? Because it must feel like, it's 76 and sunny again, or it's 82 and sunny.
Yes.
Every day.
Yep. I grew up in the 80s in the drought, and so it almost never rained my whole entire childhood. I didn't see snow fall out of the sky until I was 27 years old, because why would I go anywhere cold on vacation? I didn't have any concept of what seasons were. Now we like slightly have seasons in San Diego. It's not even fair to say. But the reason I actually love Sedona, Arizona is because I believe it is one of the more mild places that you can get the most beautiful experience of all 4 seasons. It's like not hot like Phoenix. It's hot in the summer, but it's not hot like Phoenix. And it snows. It's beautiful when it snows, but it doesn't snow as much as Flagstaff. It's 4,500 foot elevation. But it was a trip for me to come to a place where there actually were seasons after growing up without them.
Mm. When you talk about being a female entrepreneur without a college degree, but yet being in the rooms with men who are CFOs with MBAs at Ivies, I'm just trying to imagine how that dynamic goes down.
Well, my former situationship was a CFO at a Fortune 10, so it goes down pretty well because of the types of mentors that I had. So one of the wealthiest men in the world started mentoring me when I was like 24, 25. And he's one of the best traders in the world. He's brilliant. He's also an MD. He is ridiculous and is a behind the scenes guy. He's very, 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 very private of a person. You do not know who he is. And I never say his name, but he gave me a whole course curriculum because he knew that I would never go to college. And he's like, you're so smart. And you cannot just only read Howard Zinn and Jonathan Kozol and Noah Chomsky. You have got to incorporate like Jared Diamond and read like all of these different more like this is how the world was created type of things. And so he gave me a list of 14 books and I read them. And then he gave me a very in-depth series of questions on the phone. And what he wanted to see is if I could cross-pollinate information from law and physics and investing and compounding returns and trading and biology and psychology and sociology and negotiation and the laws of power and all these different things, and put together from a large swath of information conclusions. And so he truly taught me how to think. Thousands of books over the years, thousands, and white papers and thousands of in real time learning in a silent, slow way. And I didn't own a television. And so I just existed in silence with books, coming to conclusions about important things, mostly because I felt like an imposter because I didn't go to college.
Right.
Generally speaking, somebody will know me for a while before it even comes up in conversation. And generally speaking, they assume that I have a degree or 2.
Right, right. And one of the things you said, which I think, I was just talking about this in class today, is people talk about what kind of skills, what kind of jobs are at risk of AI. I'm like, I think it's more what kind of thinking. Linear thinkers versus nonlinear thinkers versus tangential thinkers. This idea of cross-pollination, right? I had a student today talking about his assignment or what he was working on. And I said, you know what this reminds me of? He's like, what? I'm like, restorative justice. He's like, what? And I had to explain what a restorative justice was. And he was like, I'm like, this is the way my head works. It's like a bingo ball thing that's spinning around and there's just like stuff ricocheting off of one another. I'm like, I'm very good at nonlinear thinking, at creative thinking. I need to work with linear thinkers to kind of get stuff done sometimes or often. But that nonlinear thinking, that tangential thinking, that cross-pollination is one of the skills that I think we really do miss the mark on teaching, which is most needed.
Yes. It's intentional, right? Because our whole school system was designed to produce workers.
Right.
And so they don't want you thinking a whole lot. Because what's interesting to me is it doesn't matter how polarized somebody is politically on any side. When I start to talk to them and I just tell them what I think, they're like, whoa, I never thought of it that way.
Right.
That's on purpose. You were never meant to.
Right.
Because as soon as you hear it, it's so logical that you had to be taught and argued at and made to feel stupid if you didn't think of it in a certain way, and have all of those, all of the persuasion arguments had to land in some way in order for people to be so terribly, terribly misaligned with their best interest in the way that we're voting. And just even in the fact that we only have a 2-party system and that those folks have got to fundraise. And so they are therefore necessarily beholden to the people that they have fundraised from. This is a broken system because it is set up in a broken way.
You want to hear like a kicker? This is going to, you will not be surprised, but you might be horrified, but not surprised.
Please.
maybe horrified. I was talking today in my class, my introduction to sociology class, and we were talking about, we so having talking about like government and deviance and, a couple different chapters, and not government as deviant, but I did talk about that too, but deviance and criminality and governance. I said, how are laws made? What goes into making a law? And they're like, well, they have this whole thing. And I said, you're leaving out an important part. And they're like, what? I'm like, lobbying. They all looked at me with blank faces. I'm like, what's lobbying mean? And none of them knew. And I said, oh boy. I said, so here, and this was not what I planned on covering, because I am thinking, what lobbying is, that corporations pay money to lobbyists to influence politicians to pass bills or remove regulation that benefits them. They're like, nope, never heard of it. I was like, wow.
Wild.
I know.
Wow. So this is a fancy pants good business college. So these folks got there from somewhere. And this is what I'm thinking about. People aren't really being taught how like even the system works.
That, or I
didn't learn that.
I fully believe someone may have taught them. They just were on their phone.
Okay.
Because there have been times when I've taught stuff and they're like, "Well, you never said that." I'm like, "I most assuredly did." Fair. So I'm not going to blame their teachers.
Okay.
It might be just that they were spaced out at that particular moment.
Absolutely. That absolutely could be the case. I forgot because I grew up before cell phones. True fact.
Yeah, but it was just fascinating. And one of the things, but was interesting, because again, business school.
Yeah.
I said, how many of you trust businesses to do the right thing if the right thing meant less profit? And they're like, nope, not at all. I'm like, this is why we have regulation, because businesses can't be trusted on the whole to do the right thing when the choice is the right thing or more money.
I really think that we're going to see a bit of a retraction from that, at least for enough of the economy to make it work for a whole lot more people. I see it right now. I just interviewed on my podcast the ladies from Little Blue Cart. They were in the last 2 podcasts, and they come up with more ethical places to purchase the exact same things you're already purchasing.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I just talked to Cut Off the Spigot. She does the same thing. And I think there's going to be a real shift of like, there's a lot of people that when they hear of one of my competitors, like Sticker App being owned by private equity, they're like, oh, well, if you have the exact same sticker, then I'll just buy that from you. Because like I don't want to accidentally line the pockets of billionaires. And if you're buying from Sticker Giant, you are buying from a multi-billion-dollar corporation. And a lot of people don't realize that because it used to be privately held. Matter of fact, the guy that started Sticker Giant is the reason that I started to even think about running open book financials, because he used to do that in that company. And so as we see more and more, it doesn't matter if it's your veterinarian or your dentist, get absorbed by different private equity companies, and then the depersonalization of things that are very, very, very personal. I mean, taking your dog to a vet. I know my vet. I don't ever want her to sell to a private equity company, ever. I won't go to the clinic anymore. I'll go to a different one where the vet owns the clinic. However, lots of vets are getting snapped up by private equity, because if you keep wanting to grow by 7%, you keep having to go into different segmentations in industry. Nobody owns anything except for these private equity companies. And then all employees are truly terribly treated because the people in the private equity company don't know those employees. They have to extract the profit from somewhere to get it into the investor class's hands as a payout of profit. That's why they function, is to make the people that invest in their company a percentage of profit, not to help the employees in the company down there. I'm not saying that none of them do. I'm sure there's very good people that work within the system of private equity. But just in general, that's not their function. Their function of a private equity company is to make a percentage of profit for their shareholders or for their investors. It is not the function of a private equity company to make life good for any of the employees that are in a double or triple down purchase, that they might not even know that they own that particular company, even if it's a very large company.
This is where I start to feel left out, because no one has tried to buy me out.
Oh, it's such a shame.
I keep waiting. I'm like, okay, where's the, I'm for sale.
What's your price?
Not much. I'm a sociologist. So, I mean, again, I can't negotiate for myself. But yeah, it's like when I was over teaching classes in Russia, going back and forth in Moscow, and I kept waiting for someone from the KGB or somebody from to try to turn me. Nope. Totally ignored.
Man.
It was such a letdown. I'm like, I got to be careful that someone doesn't try to collect information on me or, make me a spy. I'm like, no one cared.
You totally missed a payday there. Sorry, friend.
Yeah, or
lot of risk with that.
They're like, oh yeah, let's go recruit the sociologist. That's going to be the key to things. When you say open book financials,
so much pull.
Oh my God. When you say open book financials, what does that mean?
Anybody within my company can go see how much money we made that day, and then I do a quarterly breakdown of where the money went.
Nice.
And I just explain to them how much stuff costs, because otherwise you run the risk of people thinking so we doubled our sales recently. Guess what? We're barely fucking baby break even. And some months we're below break even because now all of a sudden we need to onboard new equipment, which I do in cash. So I don't want us to suddenly have a $20, $30, $40, $50,000 day and people be like, we're rich. I'm like, this company is still $2.2 million in debt. Calm down. Can we go to the slightly nicer place on Friday group lunch? Sure. Are we rich yet? No. We'll let you know. We'll let you know what happens.
We'll have a party.
Yes. Well, we will. We have a nautical bell that we ring on the wall, like when we get something, when we get more paid time off or a raise or whatever it is. And we do have a party on raise day, and we let them know in advance, like, raise day is next week. And it's so fun. And now they understand, our daily average right now is about $7,500 a day. And that's fantastic. Just last month, it was like $6,600 a day. And we're scaling that quickly. So right now, we have to get to $93.15 a day to get the next round of raises in. And everybody knows that. So people keep an eye on it. And then they're really excited. So when somebody, makes a big sale or does some piece of artwork that a client is going to buy, or we onboard a new product and production has to figure out how we're going to create that product, everyone feels the ownership in that because they know that where they are going to be personally benefited.
Right.
So, do you think that any other sticker company that exists, that you're going to have the same type of high touch client experience? My people love their jobs and they love their clients because they know that our clients is what keeps us in business.
It's always one of those questions where, the idea of buying organic coffee or paying for fair trade stuff. And, the question was always, are people going to, and I'm not saying you're more expensive, but are people willing to do more, to go out of their way, or to select based on their values? And, I might not be able to live my values at work, but I potentially could buy my values in my consumption. Mm-hmm. And are you finding people are responding to your, how you're talking about your values in such a public way, and the emphasis you place on the employee experience and the fair workplace practices that you have?
Yes, they sure are. And we are incredibly competitively priced with competitors, which is really hard for us. I would be profitable if we were more fairly priced for the actual customer service experience that we have.
Right.
The way that we integrate our technology backend, we will be so very on unfuckwithable because once we have a client, they are ours. Nobody else can come along and take them from us because of the way that we reach into the client and we figure out what they actually need and we give that to them, and we care so very, 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 very much, and we treat them like royalty. And so as we start to have our annual increases, which we will, we maybe not every year, but like every 18 months or 2 years, they're not going anywhere. So even if we have to be a little bit more competitive in the beginning, we are going to be more expensive because we are a concierge service and it costs us more. We build private, customized back page interfaces for every single one of our clients, all of them, so that it makes the process of purchasing from us way easier. And we don't do it with fucking AI, so it doesn't look like slop. It's like very beautiful.
Right.
And of course, then, people buy more stuff.
I'm kind of curious about what went into the logo of the sticker Junkie Monkey.
My joint smoking monkey.
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm. So it's my brother did that logo. It's actually a really funny story. So I own Sticker Junkie. So I was like, we have to have a Sticker Junkie monkey. And it's like, it was an edgy zine company. When it started out, Sticker Junkie just did bumper stickers, the same exact generator that's still actually on the Sticker Junkie website. Is just like a more updated version of it where you could just make 2 sizes of bumper stickers, like 100 different fonts. And so it was kind of a punk rock company because I also had owned Anti-Establishment Clothing, which was a very punk rock company. And I wanted a monkey, so I hired this kid in Ocean Beach to design me a monkey logo. And he literally just gave me Paul Frank's logo, but I had never seen Paul Frank's logo because it was 98. And because I owned Anti-Establishment Clothing, which is doing like over $1 million in annual revenue, I started out the first month of Sticker Junkie with this like $70,000 or $100,000 magazine campaign because, again, Google did not exist. Mm-hmm. So I had the back cover of High Times, Rolling Stone, Maxim, Blender, Stuff, all of these
Stuff
magazines. Yeah. Big Paul, we're the same age, my friend. So because he used to advertise on a magazine to get people to go to a website, insanity. People could call in their orders. They could just look at the fonts and call it in and just tell us what to do on the phone on a 1-800 number. Oh my God. I rode into this interview on a pterodactyl. And so what even was I talking about? I went so far off.
Your monkey, the monkey.
Right.
Yeah.
So we roll out this campaign on like 1 million different magazines on the back covers, like more than 1 million in distribution. And then I get a call from Paul Frank's attorney. And I got an email. I called the attorney myself immediately because I'd never had to have an attorney. I'm like, I am so sorry. I just looked you up and it is the same logo. And I just paid this kid in Ocean Beach $150 or $250 to give me this logo. I had no idea. My brother's an artist. Let me have him rework this really quickly. Like no harm, no foul. I really didn't. I was so nice.
Right.
He was such a dick to me at first because he just thought I was lying, but I wasn't. And so I very quickly, within like an hour or two, my brother revised the logo and made the mouth corrected. And I said, I'm pretty sure that's 50% different, and I'm really, 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 really sorry.
What if we give him a joint? Yeah, that works.
He already had a joint. It was Paul Frank's logo with a joint.
Oh, okay. So that the joint wasn't 50% enough. It was just like 25% enough.
It was literally exactly.
What if we make the joint bigger? Was that get us a 50?
Oh my God.
And a monocle. A joint, a monocle. Is that enough?
There you go. We'd have Mr. Peanut coming after us.
That too, right? No, it's the punk rock ethos, right? I mean, a lot of people don't remember that, or I should say my students don't. Yeah. But this counterculture notion that it was anti-establishment, but wasn't necessarily anti-distribution, right? I mean, just because you had a business that was anti-establishment doesn't mean that everything you do has to be like outside of the mainstream in some kind of way. I mean, there's something to be said about being in the mainstream to carry an anti-establishment message. That's the best place to carry it.
It's a true fact. Once I got into Hot Topic and my t-shirts really started taking off in there, I had all those shirts like, I'm bad with names, can I just call you dumbass? I used to have superhuman powers. My therapists took them away. Losing faith in humanity, one person at a time.
Right.
Those are all bestsellers in Hot Topic for years and years and years and years. And at one point, I controlled 40% of the shelf space on the word t-shirts in Hot Topic out of my pretty little mind. So I was moving, tens and tens of millions of dollars worth of merchandise annual. And I had a real legit grown-up company, but it was distributing an anti-establishment message. And a lot of our t-shirts were like, all politicians lie. Don't hold strong opinions about things you don't understand. I sell crack for the CIA. Yeah.
I sell crack for the CIA. Yeah. True story, by the way.
True story. Yeah. It's based on real facts.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's how to raise consciousness and edginess in the space of a contemporary market. And then, I love these things like Zines, right? I do remember them. And I'm just going to go to Kinko's and run these off. And I was reading, I don't know if you're familiar with, God, what was her name from, now I'm going to Bikini Kill.
Oh, yeah.
Kathy.
Oh, okay.
No, but she wrote an autobiography. And it was really interesting because she talked about, writing a feminist zine and putting it together on a board and, layout and living in a collective and all of these things. I mean, now she's married to a Beastie Boy, but the ethos of it, but the ethos of it is still there, that you can have money and still have values.
Yes, it's really funny that we've correlated, like, you're just an asshole if you have money, but everybody wants money. And quite frankly, I know billionaires who are not assholes, and you don't know who they are because they're chilling and living their life. And most of them, spoiler alert, no longer billionaires, because you don't need that much money. So they've redistributed so much back. So they're just comfortable and they have their number, and they're, have become professional level downhill mountain bikers in their spare time. And you would sit next to them on a flight and not know who they are.
Right. There's like the guy who created one of the creators of the video game Fortnite has been buying up forest, I think it's in North Carolina, to preserve it.
Yeah.
So no one else can buy it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I know a lot of those folks. And because, of course, my background is in video games also, I owned the exclusive sales rights on the merchandise for Minecraft, World of Warcraft, Call of Duty, The Walking Dead. Every word out of my mouth just sounds like I'm a pathological liar to have done this many things. But that is what happens when you live a life and don't look at a screen and don't own a television and just live your life all day, every day.
And by the way, Kathleen Hanna in the book was a Rebel Girl. And I highly recommend it. If you haven't listened to it,
I will.
It's pretty amazing because of that moment, right? And this living through that era. And also her as a woman in a female band in a time of how the punk scene could be very, machismo and very, but at the same time, you had the whole notion of women's empowerment through this anti-establishment music and messaging, and how to carry that message forward, whether it's a t-shirt or whether it's a company, and sometimes both. A t-shirt and a company.
Yeah. And to be honest, I'm super surprised that we never met, but our paths never crossed, but we would have been fucking best friends. My first show was NoFX, 24/7 Spies, and Bad Religion. It's astonishing to me that we didn't meet, because I also started the Winston House in Venice Beach. And I've been in, like, crossing in and out with the music scene for years and years and years, because there's such a cross between clothing and music. And especially being one of Hot Topic's biggest vendors, it's just weird that our paths haven't crossed.
Well, the thing is,
she'll hear this and this will change.
Oh, I'm sure she's a subscriber. Hi, Kathleen. Yes. I think one of the notions that ties it all together is whether it's music, clothing, or stickers or values, or they can all be very personal, but also communicate to everyone else who you're about and what you belong to.
Yeah. Yeah. This shelf space right here, this center chest print, large format graphic t-shirt, or back of the bumper sticker on your car. That's how we were talking about this before the other day, you and me, Gary. But that's how I know that this regime that's currently in office is coming to a close, because I drive back and forth so frequently between San Diego and Sedona, Arizona. And I used to see thousands and thousands of bumper stickers for Trump and for MAGA back and forth on that drive. And I started clocking it about 9 times ago of going back and forth. This is a 7-hour drive each way. So that's 18 trips, 7 hours each. And I have seen 2 Trump stickers on cars, 2. That is an individual decision that each individual person went and made to go strip those off of their car, because it no longer identifies who they are. And that is a much bigger move than most people would realize.
Maybe that's what you also need to sell at Sticker Junkie, is a sticker removal kit to remove the bumper sticker from your car once you get tired of that affiliation. Here's some help in removing it from your vehicle.
There you go. Goo off. Goo off will do it.
No, I was thinking we can brand it with the monkey smoking a joint.
Oh, I love it. That's so cute. Like a little mini pack. Oh, that's adorable.
A little mini pack of sticker remover, so you can, Sticker Junkie monkey your car, because not only are you giving them the remover, but we'll give you something for free to replace it with.
Brilliant.
That's what I'm here for.
I like it a lot.
Well, I really do appreciate you taking the time to talk about Sticker Junkie and all things Andrea Lake, which there's a lot. There's more we didn't get to, but it is only like a 1-hour show.
True facts. Well, thank you so much for having me. I super appreciate it. Be sure, if you didn't tell your students when you were telling them about Stickergate and how my biggest competitor was showing off his love of Donald Trump, be sure and tell them that I was a contestant on The Apprentice, which makes that even crazier that this is happening. This is a fairy tale adventure. You could not make this story up. So if you want to hear more about it, go hit up Andrea Lake 101, The Making a Billionaire.
And all those links
that was slick, right?
Yeah, it was very slick. I was like, you've done this before. And all those links will be in the show notes.
What a pleasure.
I want to thank Andrea Lake for joining me to talk about stickers, entrepreneurship, business ethics, not an oxymoron necessarily, and employee experience. You can find out more about her work and her company and her insights in the links in the show notes. Also included in that is a link to her podcast as well. Great stuff. You can also share feedback about this episode or any episode at feedback@experiencexdesign.com. And as mentioned in the introduction, I would be very appreciative for your support for the Unwow. So head over to theunwow.com, click on Support the Unwow, and select a perk package that makes sense for you. And that's you as an individual or even you as a company. There are company packages available. But if you're an individual, you can buy one of the company packages too. It will just be a little bit different than the individual packages. So theunwow.com and Support the Unwow. I need your help to make the Unwow happen. And as always, remember to be safe, be kind, be well, and be here for the next Experience by Design. Bye.